All right, so I thought since I'm actually going to miss the happy hour that I would start a little early. So sorry, everybody, but hopefully maybe you have a drink too and you can join me. But so as I pour this, and actually this is actually one of my rituals too when I do presentations. It's kind of funny. I usually, when we were doing in-person ones, I get nervous and I would go to the lobby of wherever we were and I would drink. It was always 1.5 glasses of white wine. Don't ask me why. It was 1.5. It was maybe superstitious, but it's just become part of my normal ritual now. I don't get nervous anymore, really, but it's still kind of a nice thing to do. So, all right. So I'm going to be talking today about, we're all doing ABM programs, but how do we actually do an ABM program on a small or non-existent budget? And I think I'm pretty qualified to talk about this, and I'll say why in a minute. But so here I am. I am currently the VP of Marketing at Metadata.io. I recently joined here, I think 2 months ago, full time, although I've been advising Metadata kind of part time over the last 6 months before starting full time. And before that, I worked at other places, Workfront, Tableau, Getty Images, Microsoft. And in most of those roles, those are all fairly large companies. And in most of those roles, I was managing marketing operations and analytics functions, not full marketing. And in those companies, we had a lot of budget, of course. So those are big companies with big marketing budgets. So it's fairly easy to do ABM programs at those places. But now I'm a one-man band at a small startup, but I still have to run ABM programs because that's what my customers expect to see. And so we've had to figure out over these last couple of months, like, how do you actually run an effective ABM program on a tight budget? I don't think I have the answer for everybody, but what I'm going to talk through today are real world experiences that I've had, real world things that I've tried, things that work, things that didn't work, and hopefully leave you all with some helpful things to try in your own efforts. Cool, so let's get started. I'm gonna take just a minute to talk about my own platform, of course, but I promise I won't be too long. So, Metadata is, I like to call it the first autonomous demand generation platform. No one's really heard of demand gen platform, so maybe we're creating a new category. But we use a combination of data and AI to operate your demand workflow and automate the most mundane tasks that marketers don't really like to do, like just creating campaigns, testing, experimenting, enriching the data from the leads that you get, and optimizing all those campaigns to what actually drives pipeline. So, we often get compared with traditional ABM solutions like Terminus demand-based, but we're a little bit different. We focus more on the last mile, that MQL, the opportunities, that kind of high quality leads that are really going to close. And so I'll leave it at that. If you're interested in learning more, just check us out, metadata.io. But let's go ahead and jump in. So, this is one of my main themes for the discussion today. And honestly, it's actually one of the main themes of my life. So I tend to overcomplicate things. Ask my wife. She'll definitely tell you. I surround a problem on all sides. I consider all of the possibilities. I come up with what I think is the best solution, and then I try and go and implement it. But in trying to address all of the aspects that my brain comes up with, I will oftentimes create a solution with no holes in it, but it's also one that might take 3 to 5 people to execute it properly when it really doesn't need that. In all reality, most of the holes I try to plug with my solution would never actually occur. So I've over-engineered a solution. And so I've really had to work on that. But what I've learned through the course of my career is that simple is often good enough, and it never has to mean less effective. And so just kind of keep that in mind as we walk through this content. Okay, so before I get into the tips and tricks basically on ROI on a budget, let's just kind of level set on the key aspects of an ABM program. So like I mentioned early on, we're all running ABM programs, but each one will be slightly different, based on, who you're selling to, who your target audience is, what your product, how expensive your product is, how complicated the sell is, all those things. Really there's so many factors about your product and your market fit that need to be considered in an ABM program, but they all have basically these elements. So first, you have to understand who you're going after. And so that's basically first understanding who is your, we all hear ICP, who's your ideal customer profile. What does that, what do those companies and the people that are your best buyers in those companies, what do they look like? And then also not just understanding what the historicals are, but are you changing things around now? So here's the folks you sold to best historically, part of your ICP, but is that changing now? Do you have a new product? Are you going up market? Is there some other reason why now you're selling differently? So understanding the historics, but also understanding where you're going to really create that profile of your target. Second, you have to target those companies and the people with ads where they're going to see them. And so obviously you don't want to put ads on places where your target audience isn't going to see them, and you want to use channels that will allow you to target the specific people you're looking for so you don't have to waste money. 3, you need to experiment with different tactics and campaigns to understand what works best. If you're just doing things and you're not learning from those things, you're really not going to get better. You need to create engagement. Number 4, you need to create engagement with your target accounts. That's really just to carry them through their buyer's journey. What are they looking for? What information do they not have? What pain are they having that you can help them solve? Really driving that engagement. Number 5, then you've got to drive demand and acquire leads from your target accounts. And then finally, you've got to convert those leads into opportunities and close one deal. So this is, we're all doing this or some flavor of this, but I just wanted to take a minute to level set on these items just so that we kind of have a starting point. So what I'm going to talk through in the next several slides is some of the challenges that we all face in these areas, and then talk through some of the real world examples of things that I've been able to do or try. All right, let's start here. Take a drink. So the first challenge is understanding your target audience. So if we think about this from a traditional perspective, we're all looking at things like what we call fit parameters. So some of the standards, like what industry is the company in, how many employees do they have, what's their annual revenue, where's their headquarters location. These are like your most basic fit variables that you could be able to find almost anywhere. And I mean, it used to be like 10 years ago, you'd actually have to have a platform just to get those basic bits of information. Now, most of the platforms and technologies you're going to use, if it has a targeting or discovery component to it, it's going to have that embedded in there. So all those basic parameters are pretty much table stakes now. So, but we all have to start with that because that's like a starting point. Anyway, let me keep talking about the challenge before I start solution. There I go again. So if you go on fit alone, you'll waste a lot of time and money. And why I say that is really basic. For example, my own product. It's basically made for any marketing department that it has a B2B selling motion. Well, if that was my definition of my target market, I would, whatever my ad budget was, and trying to approach all of those companies and all the marketers in those companies, maybe I'll serve each person like 0.1 of an ad. Like my frequency won't even be 1 to that target audience, let alone multiple hits that, multiple impressions that I need to get for that message to get through. So don't do that. Don't with fit alone. So if fit's not enough, what are some interesting segments you could go after? And the final thing here is, like, if you think about, if you're using the same targeting parameters as everyone else, you're fishing in a crowded pond because everyone else is using the exact same signals. And there are a lot of companies, like using my own, another example, there's a lot of other companies going after the same exact audience that I want to go after. Again, if we're talking about fit alone. But, where do you find some of these other parameters? So I'm going to talk about some other parameters that are sometimes non-standard, but can be helpful. So some of your traditional platforms will go as far as giving you, like, what's their selling motion? Is it B2B or B2C? That's great, because you can't quite tell that with just industry. The industries just aren't defined enough. Okay, pharma is a great example. Pharma sells to people, but they also sell to companies. And so, like, you get mixed up in there. It'd be nice to know, well, is this a B2B or B2C selling motion? Alexa ranking. So that's just a kind of it's a basic one, but sometimes their Alexa ranking or a recent change in an Alexa ranking could be a good signal. What's their growth rate on the number of employees? So you just know the number of employees, but is it growing or is it decreasing? And that's actually really helpful too. And actually, if it's decreasing, you may actually have you may have a product that actually needs to go into companies with decreasing staff. I don't know why. I mean, maybe I don't know what it would be, but there are those examples, I'm sure, the negative and the positive. Funding amounts. Have they recently got funding? How much? What rounds are they through? And then one of the better ones is also like technographic. So what technologies do they already use? And I'll talk about that more in a second. You go a level down and now you're getting into intent. And so intent is great if it's accurate. I haven't had super experience with intent from most third-party intent providers. Obviously, first-party intent is the best. So like if you know they're on your website, they're engaging with you on social, that's your own first-party intent. And that you can model and use to help predict which deals are going to close and which are not. So that's absolutely something. I think we use a tool called EBSTA to help with that. And so, yeah, first-party intent. And then there's companies like G2 and Capterra, where these are sites that people go to research a category, and these companies provide intent. So now G2 knows, for example, that which companies are researching which categories of software on their site, and I can buy a feed of that data. It won't tell me the people. That would be privacy issues there, but it does tell me the companies that are visiting either my page on the G2 website or my competitors or the category itself. That's great intent data, especially if you see like surging intent, not just like onesie twosie, but like you see all of a sudden a bunch of people from the same company now are coming to your site or your competitors' sites. And then thinking outside the box, like, are they hiring for specific roles in specific departments? That might be a signal that you can use. Are they just starting or just finishing some huge project type? Are they expanding to new locations? Let me talk about some of the other solutions I have on this side. So one great audience to target would be your customers' competitors, right? So your customer obviously has competitors. If your customer is making hay with your solution, or they're doing really well, why not market your solution to their competitors? And so, because hey, if company X is getting great results using me, why wouldn't you? You're in the same industry. And so that's a great one. We use that. Also, kind of the inverse is your competitors' customers. So again, if you use a service like Built With, you can understand which companies are actually using your competitor software. You can also, in that same data feed, see the first month in the year that technology was detected, if it's something that goes on their website. And so you can easily see like, oh, and this is a feed that I get, oh, here's a list of Terminus customers. We don't compete with them directly, but Terminus customers are absolutely ones that could use our platform. And I see the date that it was first detected on their site, and I can back that up like, oh, it takes some time to sign a contract and then finally implement the tool. So let's say 2 to 3 months before that, I'll want to start, before it was first detected on the site, I'll want to start to market to that person because they're going to be probably coming up on a contract end date. If it's a 2 or 3 year contract, I don't get the year that it was first detected. I only get the month. So I'm kind of guessing, but guess what? It works. Like, you're going to find people, you're going to get the message in front of the right people at the right time. Not in all cases, but in a lot of cases. I have this example here that I said of number of ads on Facebook and LinkedIn. So our product is made for people that are advertising, B2B advertising in display, LinkedIn, Facebook, and other channels. So a signal for me is easily like, are they advertising on Facebook or LinkedIn already? Because we can help them do that better. And so this was not data readily available. We had to actually kind of figure out how to curate this. And so we started with a fit list, the list of customers that would be our best fit, just on the normal fit stuff we were talking about, with a little bit of added intelligence on it. And then we ran it through a script to go find their Facebook and their LinkedIn company pages. When we found those, we were able to write a script that just counted the number of ads they had out there. So both Facebook and LinkedIn have a page you can go to that lists all of a company's ads that they have in market right now. So we just counted them. we have no idea how much they're spending, but we have a great sense of the number of ads they have on LinkedIn and the number of ads they have on Facebook right now. And for us, that's a huge signal, especially if they have way more ads on LinkedIn than Facebook, because I think I probably know why. They're probably not able to target very well on Facebook because Facebook's native targeting is not great for B2B. That's a huge area where we help people. We give people the ability to do like LinkedIn style targeting, but then inject those audiences right into Facebook, so you can advertise on Facebook just like you would on LinkedIn with those same audiences. So that's a perfect audience for me. I can just say, and I can tell them, I know something about you. Some of you on this call may have even seen one of my ads. I know something about you. I know that your company is not running as many ads on Facebook as they are on LinkedIn, and I bet I know why. Let me help you out with that. That is a beautiful custom target list. And guess what? It was fairly big. That's a list of 1,200 companies that I had that data for, that started with my fit, and that I was able to tease down and get to this, like, I think I used 33% or 40%. If 40% or less of their ads are on Facebook versus LinkedIn, this is the message that I'm going out with. The last point I have on this slide kind of goes with the second to last point. I call it micro-targeting. I don't even know if it's a term, but this is just what I call it. And this is where I'm trying to mix multiple signals that I have from different areas to create a micro segment to target. And so it's not super simple, and it's not like this isn't a set it and forget it. This is, to get good results though, takes hard work, right? There's really no shortcut to any good, really good results. And so this is me saying, well, let me combine, similar to the Facebook, LinkedIn example, let me combine the companies I know would fit us well, just in terms of their size, their industries, but let me then layer on this data, the number of ads, the percent of ads they have on Facebook. And then also let me layer on, obviously, the normal stuff, exclusion lists. Are they a current customer? Are they a past customer? Are they a closed, lost, recent deal? And then I sort this by the percent of ads they have on Facebook, and then that's where I start. So, so it's really about finding the interesting things that can define your best customers, and then figuring out some way to scale, finding those customers, finding those prospects and bringing them in to your funnel. All right. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, I'll be doing Q&A at the end of this. So if you have a question, I'd actually love for you to pop in to the video. So I think you can actually put hey, I want to join and share, and then we can maybe pop you in later on and talk through it. But we'll also be taking questions. I'll also be taking questions just from the normal chat as well. Cool. So next one. I'm going to take a break for a second here. Take a drink. All right. I also sent my 14-year-old son out on a bike trip to go pick up Jimmy John, so that should be I'm sure too. Okay, so the challenge, targeting your audience in the channel. So now you know who you're going after. How can I now target them in the channels that I need to? So great, LinkedIn is great for targeting business buyers, but it's expensive, as we all know. B2B marketers usually give up on Facebook, kind of like what I was just talking about in that previous slide. It's low cost, but imprecise business targeting. And just to elaborate on that a little bit, just so everybody knows, on Facebook, the native targeting are like interests and like personal demographics. Are you a male or female? Where do you live? What are your personal interests? Is just this huge balloon of different things. They do have fields for what company you work for and your title, but nobody uses those. And Facebook doesn't have the notion of what a company object is. So for example, the way I say that is if in your company you put, oh, I work for IBM, and somebody else puts, I work for I period, B period, M period, Facebook may see that as actually two separate companies. It's not really that, it doesn't care that much about that company object, basically, that sits on all of our personal records. Nor does it really care much about the title object. So while you can search on those things in Facebook, the accuracy is really low, and just the fill rate, the number of people actually completing those fields, is low as well. And also, I just realized mine, I don't use Facebook that much. I stopped a couple of years ago, but when I looked at it the other day, I was like, oh, I'm still VP of marketing at Tableau, and that was 2 jobs ago. Display. So third point, display. Well, actually, let me say 2 more points about Facebook audiences, because it bugs me. So talked about native targeting. The second one is people feel like, oh, I can create a matched audience using my first party data. Well, guess what? Your first party data is probably business email addresses. Again, most people don't put their business email address even as a secondary email address in Facebook. So you're not going to get a match rate on that. And Facebook uses email address to do that match. And so you're not, sorry if you hear my dog barking, hopefully you don't, but you probably do, she's loud. And so, whoops, so that audience, you're gonna get like a 5% match rate, maybe, if you try and upload your database of contacts. So that's the first problem. The second problem is lookalike audiences. People think, oh, it's a lookalike audience. And so if I just upload like my best business buyers, then Facebook is gonna create a lookalike audience of those buyers, and that lookalike audience is gonna be other business buyers. That's not true. It's gonna make a lookalike audience based on the attributes it knows and it's confident about those individuals: male, female, gender, age, location, interests. And so that's the lookalike your audience you're going to get. So just know there are challenges with Facebook when you're creating audiences for business, but you don't have to have those challenges if you use a platform like Metadata, or there's others out there as well. So that's what on the right-hand side, for Facebook to work, you need to bridge the personal professional gap. That's what I was just talking about. It can work, and it does work. There are a lot of businesses out there that are doing a majority of their advertising on Facebook, and they're getting those low costs, and they're still getting to their target audience. Direct mail is another amazing channel that I love. So gifts, love gifts, but no one's at work, and we have the work addresses of everybody. Guess what? Oh man, Maggie. Now Maggie's come, my dog has come all the way up here to bark because I think she's scared of something outside. Again, apologies everybody. So direct mail now has intercepts to ensure it goes to the right address. I love this. So Sendoso just recently did this. Alice, I think, has always done this. But so now if I want to send a gift, just a small gift to somebody in my target list, I just have to have their corporate physical address. And if I have the corporate physical address, email address of the person, first thing it's going to do is Sendoso is going to send them an email and say, hey, Metadata wants to send you a gift. This is where it's going. Is that accurate? And they have to go in and either approve that address or change it. If they don't approve it, nothing goes out, which is awesome, because old days Sendoso just goes, right? Everything just goes. You have to have the address. It just goes to that address. There's no verification. Now it won't have to go out at all. So if they don't get the email, or if they just don't respond, guess what? You're not spending the money. But if they do, you know it's going to go to the right address. And the best part about it is that personal address doesn't come back to me. That stays with my third-party sender. So that person can be comfortable that they'll never have to, I won't have all of a sudden their personal email address and like drive over, knock on their door and try and sell them my product. And then finally, a point on this one. So to do targeted display in a work from home world, you need to use a service to onboard email addresses to cookie pools. I just read that literally, but most display, when you're targeting display, is based on IP address lookups to a company. And since that's not really working right now, it's starting to kind of get there. Like I've been to some sites from my house that know I'm from Metadata. I think the Segment website might do that, or Drift. I can't remember. One of those sites. It's awesome. But on this one, you can use a tool like Throttle, for example. If you're using the trade desk, Throttle can take a set of email addresses and basically understand the cookie and upload those into the trade desk. And now you can actually, you've transitioned business to personal email address to display, and now you can target those people at home, even though you're targeting a company. Whew, all right, I think I got one more slide of things and then a couple examples, and then we'll move into Q&A. So this one is all about experimenting and trying new things. So here's the challenge, and this is what happened to me. Budgets get cut, but goals don't. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So that probably happened to a lot of you. Budgets get cut and goals don't. Sorry, just trying to figure out why my dog is still going crazy out there. So if we think about, so that's one thing. The second thing is, if we're thinking about experimenting and trying new things, getting one thing out the door is hard enough, but let alone testing lots of variations. And so like, it doesn't matter the size of company you're at. I've been at huge companies where we never tested anything. We would do a lot of things, but we wouldn't go in one campaign and try multiple variations. It was like, nope, this is right, 100%, out the door, done. And that just doesn't work. And it actually surprises me the number of large marketing departments. Every place I've worked at before, listen to me, please. The number of large marketing departments that spend so much time on creating lots of different things, but they don't, once they launch something, they spend like no time optimizing it after the gate. Whoever gets the first thing 100% right out of the gate? Like, nobody does. So why would anyone think that this campaign is going to be 100% right out of the gate and just let it ride? So if you take one thing away from me, stop doing so many things and make sure you just milk the things you're doing for as much performance as you can get out of them. And then I think some people might have a challenge. Your leadership may not value experimentation. They might be nervous about it. They might think it's a waste of money. So hopefully you don't have to fight that uphill battle. So what can we do about this? This is one of the things that I've carried with me in my entire career. I learned from a CMO that I worked for before. Don't forget that innovation comes from constraints. And so this goes along with the budget cuts. Budgets get cut, but goals don't. If that happens to you, guess what? If we are just given, like if I create a plan and I have everything I possibly think that I need in that plan, let's see, my 14-year-old. Oh, so I know why. There's dog barking. My son is stuck outside of the house with the door locked. Sorry, everybody. Just give me 1 second. I can unlock it from here. And it's unlocked. Boy, live events. Awesome. From home. Okay, he should be able to get in now. Let me just text him so that he knows. Sorry, everybody, but real life. And that should get the dog to stop barking too. She's just sitting there barking at him. Okay, hopefully you got a chuckle from that. Okay, innovation from constraints. So if I have everything I need to meet my goals, am I going to try anything new? Probably not, because I'm going to say, well, okay, I got to meet my goals. I have all this historical data that says these are the things that work, and I have enough budget now and resources to make those things that have historically worked hit my budget. That's not great. Like, that's not a great approach. And we don't do it on purpose, right? It's just psychology. So it's not that we're doing it like it's not that any of us that I've done this before too. It's not that any of us that are doing this are thinking like, ooh, I'm going to sandbag, I'm going to get one over on my boss. Like, they're not going to know. We're not doing that, but it just kind of naturally happens because like we want to hit our goals. We want to be consistent, we want to be accurate. And so sometimes we'll go to the least common denominator. So, but when you are given a constraint, so like me, I had a 60% reduction in my budget, but maybe a 15% reduction in my goals. So, whoa, how do I make that work? So it forces you to sit down and come up with new and innovative things. And so just keep that with you. There's articles been written about this, HBRs and stuff. Innovation comes from constraints. Just keep that with you. Next, what can you do for free? There's not much, unfortunately, but like one of the things, email, of course, is free, but is it effective? Like, I don't think there are a lot of people that make email effective. I have not seen that done yet, and I have not done it yet. I'm still trying. I want to try. I don't want to give up on it, but I struggle with the trackability of email. With most companies having some kind of spam filters that literally siphon off the email, open it, click all the links. Now your HubSpot or your Marketo instance thinks that email was open and thinks that it was like all these links were clicked. I know there's ways of getting around that, like, oh, if it happens in 5 milliseconds, all that kind of stuff. But us one people bands can't really figure all that out. And so email's not a super viable channel. I'm going to make it be a viable channel. I really have a goal for that, but right now it's not. So, but if you don't like email, do you have someone who could become the face of your company on social media platforms? Like, that's, I think, a huge way that you can get free awareness of your brand and your product. So try and leverage that. It doesn't have to be a marketer, but who is the best person that can go on, have conversations, talk about the product, not be, too salesy, but just be a good face for the company and draw some awareness. show that the company is intelligent in what you're doing, and those kinds of things. So figure that out and start to work on a social media plan with that person. Don't discount this. Somebody should be the social face of your company on social media. Figure out a new approach that works and automate it. Oh boy, that's so simple. Thanks, Jason. That's great advice. But I do have another slide down below where we'll get into that. Am I already out of time?
You're already almost out of time because you said.
Oh, I forgot.
Jason.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jason, for coming in.
That's all right. I'm just very conscious because you have shared so much, Jason. Oh my goodness, I've taken so many notes. The detail, you should have had an hour. There is so much in this. It's fantastic, and the level of knowledge comes clearly through. But there are a couple of questions. I just want to pose them to you now. The first one, in fact, that I had was around intent data and what's happened since the working from home and the crisis and the match rates. You talk about, you saying they're starting to pick up, but what did you see them drop down to?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know specifically, but I've heard some folks tell me that they've 30% or more. You know what I mean? Where they were now not able to track. I think the ones that stayed up are folks that are, of course, using VPN. That's easy to track. And then some larger companies, I don't know how, but they've stitched some things together either through a machine ID or something. I don't know exactly how, but so yeah, I've heard and seen like 30% or more, I think.
Yeah. I think that's what we're experiencing as well.
Yeah, I think they're scrambling to try and figure it out.
But as you pointed out, which is so fantastic, is that we have so many other sources that aren't being used, and if everybody's using, to your point, is fishing in the same small pool with the same tools, guess what? You end up with the same group. And I love some ideas and things you shared. And James has a really good question. James Farmer. Intent data of global companies is very hard to use in a meaningful way, given how complex businesses are and how many people there are within an organization and who actually is interested. How do you overcome that?
Yeah, that's a good question. As you probably know, some of the most of the intent data providers are going to have some kind of a surge mechanism, or I'm probably using the actual brand term from somebody, but well, you'll know that the company is like surging. Because like if you take an example, and this was the example that was given to me years ago, it's like, well, Apple as a company, tens of thousands of employees, right? At any given time, somebody in there is going to be researching ABM for whatever reason. You have no idea. But there's a baseline of that search activity for that company. And so these intent companies should be tracking that. And like, okay, the baseline for Apple of doing ABM searching is this. All of a sudden that goes up. And so now that's where they kind of understand, they start to get those signals. But this is why third-party intent is I'm not a huge fan of it. It, again, like I say with everything, there are absolutely instances where it's great and it works. I have not partially. I've kind of seen some signals work and some not. But this is where it's like, if you can just figure out how to do the first-party intent, or just get a little bit closer to the person or the actual thing that they're trying to find, like even actual search intent data. So people are searching and understanding them and creating audiences out of people that are searching for specific topics is another way you can do it. And then I like the companies, like I mentioned, like the G2s and the Capterras, and there's others out there as well, Trust Radius, I think, where you can buy that data. You can buy the intent data. And these are people that are going to these sites that are reputable. They're people, comparing software to each other and other things like that. And then you can just get a few.
As you say, in the tech sector, and the strength of people actually paying to go to analyst sites for those in-depth reports, that right. It's an intent beyond just a standard white paper or guide. And I think, again, I started my career in data, and I always ask, what's the source of the data? Why did somebody go there? And because it tells you so much. And that was fabulous. We don't ask that enough. I could personally have listened to you for at least another half an hour, Jason. So I'm sorry to cut you short, but My
No,
job is
I'm
not
glad you did. I just totally lost it. I, for some reason, thought I was going to my 2:30 my time, but yeah, thank you for that.
But anyway, there was one last comment that we all really want to meet Maggie the dog. We think Maggie is a hero for basically telling you to let your son in with the food. So we'd all love to see you post a picture of Maggie. And just
Nice.
huge thank you. And I hope everybody will come over now onto the main stage and join us for that last session. And maybe we'll see you for the virtual drinks, Jason. You started before some of us. I can't wait for the last session of the day, when we will all have a chance to jump on camera and raise a glass to each other, because lots of you, we haven't seen your faces. So super job. Thank you, Jason. And do all connect directly with Jason for more follow-up.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.